Good afternoon. Okay, today we are going to continue factoring and we're going to factor trinomials. Okay, remember the first the first lesson was factoring using the GCF. Then the next one was factoring using dots, differences to squares. Now we're going to work with factoring trinomials. All right, and before we start with the topic, I'm going to explain to you what the do now is all about it, so that will help you to with the lesson of today. So let me just introduce this in Spanish. Buenas tardes, muchachos. Ahora vamos a continuar factorizando, pero vamos a hacer trinomios. Lo dividí en dos partes. Hoy vamos a hacer la parte 1, ya les voy a explicar de qué se trata, pero para repasar, acuérdense, factorizamos usando el máximo común divisor, de ahí factorizamos usando diferencia de dos cuadrados perfectos, o sea, dots, y ahora vamos a factorizar usando trinomios, ¿ok? Y el ejercicio de calentamiento que les había dado era para que más o menos hicieran la conexión de cómo salen todos estos números, ¿verdad? Y eso les va a ayudar mucho para la lección de hoy. So I'm going back to English now. Okay, guys, look. There is a pattern here, that I want you guys to recognize, okay? Now remember, before we continue, the formula, okay, of a quadratic function or quadratic equation is represented by this formula right here. 8x squared plus bx plus c, okay? C is the constant, b is the middle term, and a is the coefficient of the leading coefficient. It's the coefficient of the leading factor, or the leading monomial, because it's called quadratic because we have the exponents of 2. If we will have that exponent right there, that will be exponent of 1, which will be a linear, okay, function. But that makes it already quadratic, okay, because we have the square sign. Muchachos, esta es la fórmula estándar de una función o una ecuación cuadrática. Cuadrática, ¿por qué? Porque el primer término está al cuadrado, el segundo a la 1 potencia y el último es la constante. Si le quitamos este término, se convertiría en una línea, en una función lineal. So, cuando tenemos el cuadrado, aunque esté solo, es una función cuadrática porque tiene el exponente 2. So, quiero que hagan la conexión que vamos a hacer ahora en el hagan ahora. Okay, the connection here with this, guys. Okay, look. This one means add, and this means multiply. So if I give you these two factors, okay, you will say 4 plus 5 equals 9, and 4 times 5 equals 20. This is the value of b in the equation, okay, and this is the value of c, that will be the constant, okay? So remember, okay? Also, today we're going to do when the leading coefficient is 1, okay? So when the value of y is always 1. Now, if you do this, if I add these two, that will give me b, which is going to be the value of the linear term. And if I multiply 4 times 5, it will give me 20, which is the value of the constant, the value of c. Okay, let me do this in Spanish. Okay, muchachos. So, la conexión aquí es esta. Miren, si yo sumo estos dos números, ok, quiere decir que 4 más 5 es 9, que sería el valor de b en la fórmula, o el valor del término del medio. Y si yo lo multiplico 4 por 5, me daría 20, que sería el valor de c, o sea, la constante. El valor de a en esta lección va a ser siempre 1. Siempre 1, no va a cambiar, ¿ok? So, si yo quisiera escribir la ecuación de este trinomio, ¿ok? La ecuación sería x al cuadrado más 9x más 20. So, alright, so si yo hago esto, la función cuadrática de esto no la puedo escribir. Ok, mejor se la voy a explicar después cuando haga estas, ¿ok? Ahora, si ustedes se dan cuenta aquí en esta, ok, si yo digo 2 más 6, me da 8, ok, so por recuerda que eso lo sumamos, este va a ser el valor de b, y 2 por 6 es 12, que sería el valor de c, y esto se multiplica, ok, so c means, ok, quiere decir multiplicación. Acuérdense, muchachos, so aquí 2 times 6 is 12, and 2 plus 6 is 8, so when I add these factors, I get the value of b, and when I multiply, I get the value of c. So here, that means that 2 plus 25 is 27, so that's going to be the value of b. And 2 times 25 is 50, that's going to be the value of c, okay? Middle term, last term. So muchachos, 2 más 25 es 27, que es el valor de B, el término del medio. 2 por 5 es 50, que es el término de C, o sea, la constante, el último número. ¿Ok? Now, esto lo vamos a hacer mañana. ¿Ok? Porque ustedes se dan cuenta, solo para que ustedes más o menos tengan una idea. En este caso, como el último término es negativo, ¿ok? Los signos tienen signos diferentes, ustedes dicen, bueno, negativo 5 más 2 les da negativo 3, ¿ok? Y negativo 5 por 2 les da negativo 10, el valor de C. Negativo 4 más negativo 2 les da negativo 6, valor de B. Negativo 4 por negativo 8 les da positivo 8. Negativo 4 por negativo 2 le da 8, que es el valor de C. ¿Ok, guys? Negative 4 plus negative 2 equals negative 6, which is the value of B, the middle term. And negative 4 times negative 2 will give you positive 8, which is the value of C, or the constant, the last term. So now we're going to find the factors, okay? I want you to take something in consideration. If you notice here, this is the only one that has negative as a value of C. Then everything else is positive, 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 positive. That's the only one. So when you see that, you're going to notice that the signs are going to be different for the two factors, okay? And even if it's positive, you see, all this positive, you have two options. Either they're both positives, positive, positive, or they're both negatives. Okay, because when you multiply two negative numbers, you're still going to get a positive. Ok, muchachos, si ustedes se dan cuenta, el único aquí que tiene la constante o la C como negativo es este problema que está aquí. So, viene la diferencia. Cuando este negativo, los factores originales son signos opuestos. Ok, pero cuando el último es positivo, como en este caso, tienen dos opciones. Los dos son positivos, los dos son positivos, o los dos son negativos. Ok, so recuérdense eso. So, vamos a hacer esto que están acá. Obviously, I'm looking for two numbers that will add, because this is positive, they both have to be either positive or negative, all right? Como este es positivo, este es el valor de C, acuérdense, C, C, this is C. Now, this is B, 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 and B. Now we're looking for the factor, now we're doing backwards, okay? So, because this one is positive, that means that the factor has to be either both positives or negatives, so I can get a positive number, all right? So how am I going to know if they're positive or negative? Looking at the B value. Okay, muchachos. Si C, siempre C, es positivo, los factores tienen que ser los dos positivos o los dos negativos. ¿Cómo voy a hacer si son negativos o positivos? Dependiendo del valor de B, ¿ok? So, como B es positivo, entonces los dos factores van a ser positivos. Y serían 5 y 3. Porque 5 más 3 es 8, 5 por 3 es 15. So guys, the factor here will be 5 and 3, or 3 and 5, the same thing. Because 5 plus 3 is 8, and 5 times 3 is 15. Okay, let's move on here. That's positive, and because that's positive, they both have to be positive. So two numbers that when you add them up will give you 13, and when you multiply them will give you 30. 10 and 3, or 3 and 10. 10 plus 3 is 13, 10 times 3 is 30. Ok, muchachos, en este caso, dos números que multiplicado me de 30 y que sumado me de 13. Ok, so es 10 por 3, 10 por 3, 30, y 10 más 3, 13. Now, these two are like that. So, the number, the sign has to be different. Okay? But I'm going to explain this to you tomorrow. But for now, just see what happens. Now, because this one is negative, you have to have different signs. Como estos dos son negativos, los factores tienen que tener signos opuestos, okay? So, when you find the two factors, okay, because you want B to be negative in this case, so the larger number is going to have the negative sign, okay? In this one, because this one is positive, so the larger number has to have the positive sign. So, muchachos, en este caso, como los dos son negativos, los factores van a ser uno positivo y uno negativo. Pero en este caso, el negativo, como este es negativo, el número más grande va a llevar el signo de negativo. Y en este caso, como este es positivo, el número grande va a llevar el signo de más. Okay? So, if I had two numbers that when I multiply them will give me 14, it's going to be 7 times 2, okay? 7 times 2 is 14. But I want, you know, here we have to subtract. So voy a poner aquí subtract to get that. So, If I subtract 7 minus 2, it's going to give me positive 5. So I have to do negative 7 plus 2. So I can get negative. So tengo que poner el negativo al número mayor para que la respuesta me dé negativo. Si yo pongo 7 y le pongo negativo a este, me daría 7 menos 2, me daría 5 positivo. Y como mi respuesta es negativa, entonces tiene que ser el mayor, tiene que haber el signo de negativo. Okay, guys? So in this case here, the largest number is going to be positive. So en este problema, el número más grande va a ser positivo porque este es positivo. So, two numbers that will multiply will give you 35 is 7 times 5. And when you subtract, it will give you 7, it will give you 2. So 7 minus 5 will be 2. So here the negative is going to be negative 5 because 7 minus 5 will be a positive 2. Now, if that would have been negative 2, then that would be negative and that would be positive. Ok, mucho, en este caso, el mayor lleva el signo de más porque mi respuesta de medio tiene que ser más. Ahora, si hubiera sido menos 2, entonces el negativo hubiera sido el 7 y el positivo 5. Now, este es igual a este. Como el último es positivo, los dos signos tienen que ser iguales. En este caso, como el B es negativo, entonces los dos van a ser negativos. So guys, in this case, because this one is positive, they both have to have the same sign. And how am I going to know which sign they're going to have? Based on my value of B. And because it's negative, they both have to be negative. So, two numbers, then when you multiply them will give you 100, and when you add them will give you 20, is 10 and 10. Negative 10 plus negative 10 will give you negative 20, and negative 10 to negative 10 will give you 100. So try to analyze that. It's always a relationship between B and C. B and C, always a relationship between B and C. So muchachos, siempre la relación es entre B y C, ¿ok? Entre estos dos, B y C. ¿Ok? C and B, remember. It's a relationship between C and B. Una relación entre B y C, ¿ok? 5 plus 3 is 8, 5 times 3 is 15. 10 plus 10, 3 is 13, 10 times 3 is 30. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. Negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. 7 minus 5 is positive 2. 7 times negative 5 is negative 13. Negative 10 times negative 20 will give you a positive 100. I'm sorry, negative 10 times negative 10 is a positive 100. Negative 10 plus negative 10 will give you negative 20. So remember, this is the standard form of a quadratic function. Esta es la forma estándar de una ecuación cuadrática. Remember, in this lesson, this always going to be 1. En esta lección, el valor de A siempre va a ser 1. So now, guys, I'm going to give you, this is what we're going to remember now for the lesson. Today, we're going to do these two and that one. We're going to do that tomorrow. So today, we're going to work on when C is always positive. Always positive. ¿Ok? Muchachos, estos vamos a hacer para mañana, cuando C es negativo. La lección de ahora todo va a ser cuando C es positivo. Positivo, 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 positivo. So remember, when it's positive, when the last one is positive, you have two options. They both going to be either positive or negative. Muchachos, cuando el último término es positivo, hay dos opciones. O los dos términos son positivos o los dos términos son negativos. Alright? So this is what I'm talking about. Whatever I explain to you now in words is right here. So you have to read this. When the last terms of the value of C is positive, both factors need to have the same sign. The sign of B, which is the middle term. Now in Spanish. Si el último término C, okay, el valor de C es positivo, las dos burbujas llevan el mismo signo, el signo de B, que es el término del medio. Entonces luego ustedes van a buscar dos números que multiplicado les dé el valor de C y que sumado les dé el valor de B. So guys, when you have those bubbles, you're going to find two numbers that when you multiply will give the last term, and when you add them will give you the middle term. So this is what I'm talking about. Remember, this is B and that's C. So I know that B goes here and C goes here. All right? Remember the formula. B and C. B and C. And this is going to be the factors. So now, you're looking for two numbers that when you multiply them will give you 8. And when you add them will give you 6. Están buscando dos números que cuando los multipliquen les den 8 y cuando los sumen les dé 6. Y va a ser 4 y 2. 4 más 2, 6. 4 por 2, 8. So, estos son los factores. Quiere decir que el 4 y el 2, o el 2 y el 4, no importa dónde los pongan, porque ustedes saben que los dos son positivos. Solo importa dónde vaya, si el 2 va a ir acá, el 4 va a ir allá, es lo mismo. So guys, it doesn't matter where you actually put the 4 and the 2, because they both have the same sign. So you can put the 2 here and the 4 there, and it's the same thing. And besides that, remember, if I do the FOIL, I will get back to this. So now I'm giving you this, and you're going to give me that. So muchachos, si ustedes hacen el FOIL, van a tener esta respuesta. So la lección ahora vamos al revés. Yo les doy el trinomio y ustedes me dan los factores. So estos se llaman factors. Estos son los factores. Ahora look at this. This is B and that's C. Remember, A is always 1. So C goes here and B goes here, which is 6. Now, because they're both positive, I'm looking for two numbers that when you multiply them will give you 5, and when you add them will give you 6. Dos números que multiplicado les dé 5 y sumado les dé 6. Va a ser 5 y 1. 5 más 1, 6. 5 por 1, 5. Ok. So no importa donde pongan el 5, no importa donde pongan el 1. So everything we're doing today is when C is positive. Okay, remember, that's all we're doing today. So tomorrow we're going to do when C is negative. Okay. All right. So let's turn the page. And we're going to go here. Now remember, now in this case, I took the parentheses, the X's, because you have to become familiar with doing everything without the diamond, okay? So muchachos, aquí yo no les di el diamante, porque ustedes tienen que acostumbrarse a no usar el diamante, tienen que usar la mente. Okay, so this is B and that's C, all right? So remember, two numbers, they when I multiply them will give me 6, and when I would add them will give me 5. Listen, if you want to do the back, if you want to do it. So 6 go here and 5 goes here. So the factor will be 3 and 2. 3 times 2 is 6, 3 plus 2 is 5. So it will be 3 and 2. You don't have to do that. You can do it on your head. Okay, niños, listen, yo ya no les doy el diamante porque ustedes pueden hacerlo también mentalmente en su cabeza. Pero si el diamante les ayuda, pues hagan el diamante, ¿verdad? Eso no tiene ningún problema, ¿ok? So, acuérdense que este es C y este es B. Ahora aquí tenemos B y tenemos C. Si ustedes quieren hacer el diamante, háganlo. Ustedes saben que aquí va B y aquí va C. Okay, guys? Here, this is B and that's C. If you want to do the diamond, do it. You don't have to, all right? But if it helps you, do it. So, 8 goes here because that's my value of B, and 12 goes here because that's my value of C. So I'm looking for two numbers that will, when I add them, will give me 8, and when I multiply them, will give me 12. Estoy buscando dos números que multiplicados me den 12 y sumados me den 8. ¿Ok? Va a ser 6 y 2, o 2 y 6. 6 por 2, 12, 6 más 2, 8. ¿Ok? So the factors will be 6 and 2. 6 plus 2, 8. 6 times 2 is 12. ¿Ok? Remember, it doesn't matter what the order of the factors, because they both have the same sign. Now, tomorrow when C is negative, things are going to change a little bit. Now here, guys, listen. Here, I did not give you not even the answer, not even the parentheses, and not even the diamond. En este muchacho no les doy ni los paréntesis ni los diamantes. So tal vez ustedes lo pueden hacer mentalmente. So let's see if you can do it mentally. So you have to do it, you have to open a set of parentheses, okay? And because this is plus, okay, that's C, and that's B, because that's plus, okay? And this one also plus, that means they're both gonna have the same sign, plus. 1x here, 1x there. Two numbers, then when you multiply them will give you 9, and when you add them will give you 6. dos números que cuando los multiplique les dé 9 y cuando los sume les dé 6. It's going to be 3 and 3. 3 times 3 is 9 and 3 plus 3 is 6. Okay? So you can avoid all this if you know the rules. You don't have to do the diamond. Ok, muchachos, ustedes no tienen que hacer el diamante si ya saben las reglas, ok? Automáticamente pueden hacer esto. So let's go number 6. This is C, all right? Remember, and that's B. Because this is positive, so both set of parentheses going to have the middle term sign, okay? So I'm going to open my two sets of parentheses, and I'm going to put plus and plus, 1x here, 1x there. So two numbers that when I multiply them will give me 21, and when I add them will give me 10. So muchachos, dos factores que cuando yo lo multiplique me dé 21 y cuando lo sume me dé 10. 7 y 3. 7 por 3 es 21, 7 más 3 10. So the factors are going to be 7 and 3. 7 times 3 is 21, 7 plus 3 is 10. That's all you have to do in the homework. You don't have to do it like that, alright? Now remember, if you notice here, so far everything has been positive, alright? But look what's going to happen now. The last term is still positive, okay? The last term is still positive, so that's C, that's B, and that's B. Now, because the last term is positive here, just like that, like this one before, I'm sorry, let me just, what am I pointing? Because, see, this is positive and that's positive, but in these examples, both parentheses were positive because of the middle term. Now, in this situation, even though C is positive, but because the middle term is negative, so they're both going to be negative. Que muchachos, si se dan cuenta aquí, este era positivo, igual a este, positivo. Pero la única diferencia es de que los factores, los dos eran positivos. ¿Por qué? Porque el término de en medio es positivo. Pero ahora en este caso, aunque el último es positivo, pero como el término de en medio es negativo, solo los dos factores van a ser negativos. ¿Ok? Porque igual los van a sumar. So now that I explained that in both languages, so let's do the first example. Equal sign, I'm even telling you right here, because the last one is positive, you're going to have equal signs. But how are you going to determine which sign you're going to use? Based on the middle term sign. So because that's minus, that's going to be minus. So you still have to add, that's B, and you're still going to multiply. So two numbers that when you multiply them will give you 24, and when you add them will give you 10. Dos números que multiplicados les dé 24 y sumados les dé 10, 6 y 4. Negativo 6 más negativo 4 es negativo 10. Negativo 6 por negativo 4 es positivo 24. So, los factores son esos. So, en vez de poner eso, vamos a poner negativo 6, negativo 6. Perdón, 4. ¿Ok? Que al final viene siendo x menos 6, x menos 4, porque más por menos le va a dar menos. So guys, when I got the factors, I just going to fill my bubbles or my parentheses. But because you have two signs, so you convert that to 1. And remember, plus times minus is minus, plus times minus is minus. Alright? So same thing here. I1, sorry, that's C. And this is B, which is negative 7. I'm looking for two factors that when I add them will give you 7. And when I multiply them will give me 10. So I'm going to be 5 and 2. Oh, sorry. I'm going to be negative 2, all right? So negative 5 plus negative 2 is negative 7. Negative 5 times negative 2 is positive 10. Okay, so negativo 5 más negativo 2 me da negativo 7. Negativo 5 por negativo 2 me da positivo 10. So my factor should be minus 5 minus 2 or minus 2 minus 5, doesn't matter. And at the end, make sure you only use one sign. Al final, acostúmbrese a usar solamente un signo. So let's do the rest. That should be simple. Okay, the first thing, that's C, B, B, C, B, C, B, C, B, C. So I know that in all these problems, because the last one is positive, that's what we're doing today. When the last one is positive, my bubbles are going to have equal signs. Okay? Muchachos, en esta lección de ahora, porque yo sé, ¿verdad?, que mi último término es positivo, todas las burbujas van a llevar, las dos burbujas van a llevar signos iguales, ya sean negativos o positivos. So, todas las primeras que hicimos eran positivos, so estas van a ser todas negativas, ¿ok? So remember, in this case, they're all going to be negative because when the last term is positive, you're going to have same signs. If all depends, if the middle term is negative, they're both going to be negative. And if the middle term is positive, they're both going to be positive. All right? You just have to remember that. Okay. So, x and x, two factors of 15 that when I add them will give you negative 8. 5 and 3. Negative 5 times negative 3, positive 15. Negative 5 plus negative 3, negative 8. Okay? X and x. Two factors of 8 that when I add them will give me 6. 4 and 2. Negative 4 times negative 2, it gives me positive 8. Negative 4 plus negative 2, negative 6. Two factors of 10 that when I add them up will give me 7. 5 and 2. 5, negative 5 times negative 2, positive 10. Negative 5 plus negative 2, negative 7. X and x. Two factors of 6 that when I add them up will give me negative 5. It's going to be 3 and 2 or 2 and 3. Remember, the order doesn't matter because both bubbles have the same sign. So, negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5. And the last one. Two factors of 40 that when I add them up will give me 13. It's going to be 8 and 5. Negative 8 times negative 5, positive 40. Negative 8 plus negative 5, negative 13. So in your homework, you're either going to have both parentheses positive or both parentheses negative. Okay? It all depends in the middle term. Muchachos, en la tarea van a tener los dos paréntesis, ya sea positivos o negativos, dependiendo del término del medio. Si es negativo, las dos burbujas van a ser negativas. Si es positivo, las dos burbujas van a ser positivas. Y mañana vamos a hacer cuando son signos diferentes. So remember, guys, everything has to be the same sign today. Tomorrow is going to be different signs. Okay, so this should be easy for you. If you don't still confused, remember, guys, take a picture of this and just memorize these steps right here. Or you can just take a picture of that too on your phone and just have it next to you when you're doing your homework. All right? So good luck and do your best.